And welcome to another episode of Waggoner Webcast Live. Brian Bushlack with you from virtual Alaska. Leonard and Lorena joining us from Anacortes tonight, as well as Mark Bunzel. Good to see everyone back with us tonight. And glad you could join us on this Cinco de Mayo. And what a night for us to talk about everything that's happening. We've got a great show lined up for you. Want to welcome you back this week and start off with Mark with some news from the Yacht Club open house coming up in June. And I know, Mark, too, we're having some staffing issues at the marinas, right?
Yeah. On a positive side, on June 3rd, the Anacortes Yacht Club in beautiful Anacortes just happens to be the hometown of the Waggoner Guide, if you haven't heard it. And Brian, in the past, Peter would ring the gong if we worked in, the Waggoner Guide into a news item. But anyway, the Anacortes Yacht Club, second oldest yacht club in the state, is going to have an open house on June 3rd, and they're going to have all kinds of things and be rolling out, and would like to see local boaters and tell them all about some of the great things the yacht club does. So that's a possibility. And then Lorena's been making phone calls. I've been making phone calls to marinas, and we're getting a resounding message, and that's that already many of the marinas are seeing that they're going to be full for the summer. So we talked about this months ago, that we thought this would be the trend, and it's actually coming true. Some of the marinas, like Prince Rupert, Robin, the harbor master there, is telling us that they're completely packed. They think all these boats that are going up to Alaska, it's going to be just a wave of boats going through. So if you have special places that you want to visit this cruising season, we highly recommend you call ahead, make a reservation. And what we're also hearing is many of the restaurants located at the marinas will not be open at all. They're having trouble getting summer labor, chefs, waitresses, waiters, and dishwashers, and they're just not going to be able to open at all. So food choices are going to be limited. In some cases, they're calling local operators of food trucks to come in and sell at the marina. So there will be some alternatives, but don't be surprised if you can't eat at your favorite restaurant.
Yeah, that's good advice. I want to ask you, Mark, while we have you here off the top of the show, you've got your Alaska cruise coming up in a couple weeks now. And what are you doing right now in between? I know you're busy all the time, but what's your day look like right now getting ready for that trip?
So we're leaving on May 16th, which is the Monday coming up, right after the weekend. So yeah, we've got less than a week and a half to go. And I'm involved in setting up our boat, CMR, that we're going to use as the mothership, which is a 70-footer, and we've got those last minute things to deal with. I had to twist my son's arm to come out next weekend and take the bimini, which is 60 feet long by 18 feet wide, off and put some patches on it. It took some rip damage on the way up the coast. So things like that, from canvas to, we had one of the Balmar alternators rebuilt in Bellingham at Whatcom Electric. They did a fabulous job. They swear it's better than new, and we'll have that in our hot hands tomorrow, and that will probably go on the boat over the weekend. So a lot of stuff like that, of some last minute things we're doing. And I'm talking to the people who are on the flotilla and giving them tips. And by the way, one thing that came up this week, and I'll mention it on the show, is we had talked about it during the seminar, but a couple of people forgot and all of a sudden said, do I really need to apply for that customs decal? And they don't need it to get into Canada, but in our case, they're going to need it to get into Alaska and on their way home to get back into the lower 48 states.
Okay.
So if you haven't signed up for your $30 customs decals, get online, sign it up. It's more important that you have the registration number than the physical decal. So some of the boats on my flotilla will go ahead without the decal, but they'll have gotten their number, registration number.
Okay, great advice there. And, while you're getting busy for the flotilla, Leonard and Lorena, they were supposed to be retired. We know they're not. They're working round the clock, probably more than full time, to keep us updated. And I know, Leonard, you've got an update on the designated raster charts being canceled in October. What's going on there?
So this is back in 2019, last part of 2019, 2020, NOAA announced that they were sunsetting the raster charts. They were out of that business. And up until now, it's been kind of a theoretical thing because they started on the East Coast and on the Great Lakes area. So for us here on the West Coast, at least it's been a bit of a theoretical thing. And just in the local notice to Marinas that just came out, they announced there's 10 of our local raster charts here, the 184 numbered charts that are now, they're in their last edition. And so that's been posted and they're gonna go away on October 5th of this year. We're not quite sure what go away means other than NOAA certainly won't be putting any new editions out, but whether they become unavailable to us is still a bit of a question yet that we don't know. I'll put on the chat a website, NOAA website, where you can look at all of the different charts on the different status. And if you go down there and look down the list, you're looking for a comment in there that's in all caps that says last edition. And that's your notice, your 6-month notice that these things are going away. Well, that's the rasters.
Okay. And this is a big weekend. And I know people are getting fired up already. I mean, here it is Thursday evening, but it's the opening day weekend of boating season across Seattle and the Puget Sound region. And Lorena, this is a exciting one because the last couple of years, with the Windermere Cup and everything that's happened due to COVID, there haven't been a lot of folks down there. In fact, there was nobody there 2 years ago. It was canceled altogether and they had limited audience there last year. So it'll be pretty cool to have everybody back together down there on the cut and out and about this weekend.
It will be, and it's always busy. I think it'll be very busy this year. People are on their houseboats and people are on the streets and in their boats that participate in the parade. So the main public event is May 7th, Saturday, and that's considered opening day in the Seattle area. You can watch the boat parade. You'll see crew races. That's always a highlight. And around 8 p.m., the boats will assemble for the parade in Portage Bay. And the first crew races then start at 10:16. Keep in mind, the Montlake Cut will be closed to boat traffic at 9:30 in the morning. And then at noon, the boat parade starts. And later in the afternoon, 3 p.m., Portage Bay is open to all boat traffic. And then the Montlake Bridge resumes regular operation at 4 p.m. So it's a busy day. It's always exciting. Boats are decorated for their yearly theme. It's one big party. Patrol will be out, of course, to make sure everyone stays safe, but it's always a fun event.
Yeah, everybody looking forward to that. Leonard, what's going on with Canada Customs? Do you have an update there?
Yeah, we do actually. Well, it's a little bit of an update, and it's also a statement that we haven't heard definitively on a couple of them. And Bedwell Harbor, we told you last week that we didn't know yet, and the status is the same. It's closed, currently closed, and we can't get a date yet from anybody as to when it's going to be open. There's some indication that it looks like it might open up sometime later this summer, but at this point we don't have a date. And the other one that we're following and we're constantly calling on is the 52 Steps dock, and that's out in Ucluelet on the west coast of Vancouver Island. It's the only one, it's the only place to clear customs out there. And it's a seasonal dock, usually opens sometime in May or June. And again, we don't have a definitive answer on that one yet. It's currently closed. So right now, those two are still not closed. And then Prince Rupert was the other one. Got to find my notes here. And this has to do with in Prince Rupert, and the idea here is when you're coming back from Southeast Alaska. So we as indicated earlier in last session too, we're getting clear indications that there are a lot of boats going up to Southeast Alaska. So when you come back, on the way back, you're going to clear customs, and the only place to clear customs on the way back is in Prince Rupert. Prince Rupert right now is expecting that they're going to be deluged with boats, and they don't have much space. There is no designated customs dock. What used to be the lightering dock went away about a year and a half ago. That dock doesn't exist anymore. And so the indication, what we're understanding is there's going to be an informal policy or practice up there. If you're going to clear customs and you can't find dock space to get into the dock to then call customs, that they're going to allow you, or that you're encouraged to go ahead and use your cell phone and do a telephone reporting, call the 1-800 number for customs clearance. And apparently the people on the other end of that 800 number will be in coordination with people in Prince Rupert, and they'll understand that there's no space, and they're hoping that they might be able to clear people on the water at that point. So there's some process, and keep that in mind, that if you can't find a place to tie up, if they're all taken, then give a try on the 1-800 number and try that.
Adding to the demand for space, the neighboring Prince Rupert Rowing and Yacht Club, they normally offer guest moorage. You don't need to be a Yacht Club member. And unfortunately, they're going to be closed May through June. They are making repairs, so there'll be some pile driving and stabilizing their docks. They hope to be open by June, but again, that's going to add to the demand there for dock space.
This is one of those late breaking news things. We need to add one of those, kind of like the 24-hour news programs. Well, no, we're not going to get to that. But
there is moorage in the area, so that's some options, right, Leonard?
You mean
for
Anchorage?
Anchorage, I'm sorry.
So,
Anchorage in the area.
Pillsbury Cove is the most popular one that a lot of people use. And so you can look to that, but it's going to be crowded up there. And just a reminder that when you're coming back into Canada, or when you're leaving the United States going into Canada, they are expecting you to use the ArriveCan app. And you may want to look at that ahead of time, make sure you have that information ready. And so the ArriveCan app, you can look it up. There's lots of information online, including, I saw 3 different YouTube videos explaining how to do the ArriveCan app.
Okay. It's good.
So one more, I'll finish up on the anchorages. So as Mark mentioned, Pillsbury Cove is the one that nearly everybody goes to. That one, it looks big on the charts, and it looks like it could accommodate a number of boats, but in reality, it's probably only about 5 to 6 boats. There are a large number of fish pens and aquaculture operations going on that have been going on for years in that cove. So the other ones that are possible for you, and take a look at these on the charts, but these are good options. Russell Arm, and that's just a little bit, it's very near Pillsbury Cove, but it's a little exposed to the south. The other one would be Bacon Cove, and these are all within the Prince Rupert area. And the other one would be the area that's kind of on the west end of the Prince Rupert Bay area, and it's right off of Toby Point, just south of that, and off of McIntosh Rock. And try those, look at those areas. And then Casey Cove, a little bit further to the southwest, looks to be very good too. And those all look like good anchorage opportunities in Prince Rupert. All of those are anchoring opportunities if you want to go into town and you want to take the dinghy. It's going to be a long dinghy ride up to Cow Bay, or any place where you can do a dinghy landing. So it's a little bit challenging this year in Prince Rupert.
Okay. Well, while we're on the topic, what's the latest on the BC marinas? I know you cover this better than anybody.
We are continuing our marina updates. From last week, we're making our way north. So we'll start with Lund Hotel. Lund Hotel, 13 Moons Marina on the Sunshine Coast. Moorage is open and the fuel dock is open. They've replaced their dock with a nice new fuel dock. Restaurant and pub will open May 20. The hotel rooms, however, will remain closed. Secret Cove, also on Sunshine Coast, their moorage store and fuel dock will open May 20, and they are planning to open their upper deck restaurant, which is quite popular. Westview Harbor and Powell River, moorage is open. It's first come, first serve, and rafting is required there. Right now, their fuel dock is on call. Starting May 20, it will be open daily from 8 to 6. Gorge Harbor, moorage is open. Make reservation requests by email.
Is this one, is there a new owner here?
No, not at Gorge.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's for sale still, right? Oh,
No. The restaurant is open, hot tub's open, and the fuel dock is open. We don't know about the swimming pool as yet. Harriet Bay Moorage reservations are accepted in the summer months by phone or email. The fuel dock is open 10 to 5 daily. Hours may vary, however, depending on staffing. So here we go with staffing issues are being seen at fuel docks as well as restaurants. Okiover Harbor Authority docks are open. There are envelopes at the payment drop box. And the popular Laughing Oyster is open Wednesday through Sunday, starting at 4:30. And their last reservation is taken at 8 p.m. Again, it's a very popular restaurant. Refuge Cove and Desolation Sound area. Moorage is open. Fuel is open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then starting in June, the fuel dock will be open daily. Unfortunately, the cafe remains closed. They are in need of a chef. Again, staffing issue on that one. April Point Resort, the rooms will be available June 1st. The spa and the restaurant will remain closed. And then the marina at the south end of the bay is under new ownership. The moorage is open year round, and just call ahead for moorage on that one. Taku Resort and Marina, moorage is by reservation, phone or online. The rooms are available. Kayak and sup rentals are available, and they're located next to Rebecca's Pit. So it's really nice, sandy beach, good place to kayak. Campbell River is very busy. All of the marinas recommend getting reservations. That includes Coast Marina, Discovery Harbor Marina, and Fisherman's Wharf.
and Seascape. Seascape
Yeah.
is an interesting place.
Seascape is nearby. They started out with high hopes of being a resort for boaters and accommodations. And unfortunately, Seascape Waterfront Resort has closed permanently. So moorage and accommodations are no longer open to the public. We think maybe it's a victim of the last 2 years of COVID. Toba Wilderness Marina, moorage is open. You can email for reservations. They request that you use distancing in the welcome house for COVID protocols. It's a great base there to tour Toba Inlet. Boaters are reminded, though, that stays at the marina are for overnight guests. Couple more here, Blind Channel and Johnstone Strait off of the strait. Moorage and fuel dock is open year-round, and the Cedar Post Restaurant opens mid-May in about May 20. Another marina that sold, Denham Bay property on the north side of Dent Rapids, has been sold. They have adorable cabins and an outdoor kitchen and trails, and they in the past have offered guest moorage to transient boaters passing through. We don't know what the new owners have in mind, but we will keep you posted on that once we find out. Sullivan Bay and the Broughton moorage, fuel, and store are open. And the Town Hall restaurant will be open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for buffet-style dinners. That's always a fun gathering at Sullivan Bay. They also plan to have lunch and wing nights there for 2022. Malcolm Island Lions Harbor, which is in Soyantula. Moorage is open. It's first come, first serve, and rafting is allowed. Restrooms and laundry are open. North Island Marina, moorage is open. Reservations are available online. That's another busy place, so be sure to make reservations. And the fuel dock is open. It's also very busy at the fuel dock. Neighboring Port McNeil, moorage is open, and their office is open daily. And the cute country store, Dawson's Landing in northern BC, the store and fuel dock are open, and they ask that you please wear a mask when you come into their store, one person at a time. and they ask that you use social distancing outside on the docks. It's a remote area and it's a mom and pop place, so they appreciate you being careful.
Yeah, good advice. Want to check in too on the news about Canada. Do we have any updates there in terms of the the taxation on the sale of new boats?
My understanding is that that is going through. However, boats prior to 2022 are exempt, and so that part's good. That's a win on that side, and also no matter when the boat was delivered. So that's good news on that one. There is some interesting news happening in the boating industry in Canada. There's a Canadian company, Vancouver-based company called Volt Safe, and they created a unique prongless plug. It's a magnetic plug design, so the two plates basically magnetic come together, and they're focusing on 30 amp and 50 amp marine shore power connectors. And they have a prototype right now, with both for the shore power plug and for the matching pedestal. It sounds quite interesting. They feel it's a much safer system, and they feel it's a wave of the future. It can handle high voltage and so can recharge electric boats. Interesting.
We're going to have to add a Shark Tank episode when these new things come up, that we can vote on them and invest in them.
That's a
This was actually version.
The Canadian version of it.
The Canadian, I forget the name, the Canadian version of Shark Tank. This is where it was first introduced.
Oh, really? Oh, I was winging that one.
You'd be a great judge on that show, Mark.
Oh, yeah. Real quiet and reserved.
Yeah, right.
Who would ever buy that?
Yeah, exactly. Want to talk about seakeepers. I guess there's an opportunity here in Southeast Alaska, right, for boat owners to host scientists. What's this all about?
Oh, this is exciting. It's fun. And we're going to talk about it in this session. And then, hopefully next week, we're going to also talk about it and expand on it a little bit more. But it's an opportunity for boaters to get involved with marine science projects with their own boats. And the organization is called Seakeepers. And we'll put this back in the chat here. But with the Seakeepers, the Seakeepers organization is matching up boat owners with science projects. So in this particular case, this one happens to be in Southeast Alaska, and they're doing the scientists there, the lead scientist on this is Michelle Fournet, and she's going to be doing some work in there. What was the time frame again on that? It was in June. And in this particular case, they're looking for transportation, they're looking for accommodations on a boat to get them from Juneau down to the Five Fingers Island down there on the southern part of Stevens Passage. And we're not quite sure exactly how involved the boat owner would be in this, but in reading some of the materials on Seakeepers, it looks like sometimes the boat owners are providing transportation and accommodation, and in addition to that, sometimes they're providing transportation or involvement with the projects with dinghy access and other equipment, carrying some of the equipment for the science projects. This one's kind of interesting, where the scientist the project is to go out and see if they can record the call signs from or the noise from the humpback whales, and then they're trying to analyze that so they can figure out what they're trying to say. Like, is my short version of this, which sounds fascinating, but it's an opportunity to get involved with this. And it's not the only opportunity. This is the one that is near reach right now. They are actively looking for boats that can help with this transportation. It's to get, again, the scientists from Juneau down to the Five Fingers Island in Stevens Passage, and then towards the end of the project to take that back again, to take the equipment and the lead people back again. Did I miss anything on that, Lorena?
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we'll put something in chat here about where you can look at their website, and then there's also a video that we'll post here, a link to that.
Well, that sounds pretty neat. Um, without further ado, Lorena, I want to hand it off to you to introduce our special guest this evening.
You bet. George Harris has been with us in past shows, and I know most people know him. He's president of Northwest Marine Trade Association, the NMTA, and he served as a boat show director for many years for the Seattle Boat Show. He's a lifelong boater and sailor and avid angler. He's here to share some information or updates about some very important legislative issues here in the state of Washington. So, welcome, George.
You're still muted, George.
Are you with us, George? I think you need to unmute there.
Oh, sorry about that. So thank you, Lorena. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Brian. Leonard, great to be with you guys tonight. So yeah, some of the legislative stuff our office has been working on this week, today. Maybe you go back a year ago, last April, when the long legislative session was wrapping up, the Senate Transportation Committee wanted to double our watercraft excise tax. So once a year when we renew our vessel registration, it was going to double. And working together with the Recreational Boating Association of Washington and the NMTA, basically we were able to put an end to that very quickly. You know, the boats in Washington state are the only motorized vehicle that pays an excise tax, and the Senate wanted to double it. But we let approximately 50,000 boaters in Washington state know that the Senate was talking about it, and voters let the senators and the reps statewide know loud and clear that that was a bad idea. However, here we are a year later still talking about the topic, and the Department of Revenue is trying to update the depreciation schedule on boats so they wouldn't depreciate like they've depreciated in the past. So effectively raising it to increase tax revenue for the state. So we've just hired a firm to study the depreciation on boats, and we're working that really hard right now. Another big win for us in the legislative session, again, working with our friends over at Recreational Boating Association of Washington, was to get $4.2 million of money annually for derelict vessels in our marinas, which is a real scourge, real problem in marinas, these derelict vessels, and really proud of that. And I know the marina owners are really excited about this. And speaking of marinas, our marinas are really in a catch-22 right now, and they have been for the last 2 years. The catch-22 is many of the marinas, probably a little more than half in Puget Sound, for example, they have a lease with the Department of Natural Resources, the state, and according to that lease, they're supposed to make improvements to their marina, or they want to, some of these marinas are 40 or 50 years old, and they need to make upgrades to, walkways and finger piers and fuel docks. But in order to make those updates that they're required to make, and they want to make, they have to get a permit from the National Marine Fisheries Service. And right now, National Marine Fisheries Service has basically frozen all of those permits. And for example, I think Port of Anacortes, ADOC, was one of the last big permitting projects that got done. Beautiful renovation to ADOC at the marina. And then down here in Seattle on Lake Washington, Leschi Marina, Lakewood Marina were kind of the last to get their permit. But everybody that went after them, almost 200, they're just stuck right now. So on Tuesday, our Vice President, Director of Government Affairs, Jay Jennings, and I are going to fly out to DC and meet with our delegation to talk about this, see if we can get things moving a little bit faster. I will give a shout out to Congressman Kilmer. He's really fluent on this subject and has been really, really helpful contacting the Corps of Engineers and National Marine Fisheries Service. So that's something we're working on. And then it's May now, so we expect the new Washington State Boatyard permit to come out before the end of the month. And we've been watching this very closely for about 2 years, commenting on it. Some boaters might remember way back in 2009 when our association initiated a phase out of copper bottom paint because our boatyards are so severely regulated by the amount of copper that runs off into Puget Sound. And we ended up rolling back that legislation for a variety of reasons. And that's not going to be looked at again till 2026. And if something were to go forward, it would only be if there is a better alternative than copper. But in the short run, we need a fair permit, tough but fair permit. And we think the permit that we've been operating under for the last 5 years is entirely fair. And I guess maybe to all the folks watching tonight, be really nice to your boatyard owner. They have got a lot of challenges and a lot of hurdles in front of them. So when that boat gets hauled out once a year or every 18 months, whatever your schedule is, that pressure wash pad that your boat gets pressure washed on, or when you get put into the jack stands, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
That's great, George. We may have to have you back on and talk about some of these things. I'll be real curious how you do in Washington. That's going to be really interesting to see how they react with all the different things they're dealing with, and whether they're willing to jump in and offer some support on this very critical thing with the permitting process.
Yeah, like I said, Congressman Kilmer's always been a real ally of ours. Senator Cantwell, she's been very open to us. She sits on a number of important committees on this. So, and Washington State, we're a maritime state. And I always notice when I walk into their offices, all of the boat pictures on the walls. So we got that going for us.
Good.
George, can you, the permit, the boatyard permit that you've been watching and that are following, that's a federal permit. And help me understand how that integrates with individual yards. Is this an overarching?
Yeah, so it's great question, Leonard. So it's a federal permit and under the Clean Water Act. And then depending on the state where it's implemented, the federal government can delegate the responsibility of the authority of the permit to the state. And that's what happens in Washington. So our Department of Ecology writes the permit and enforces the permit. But a provision of the Clean Water Act, like the Clean Air Act, is it allows for citizen lawsuit or citizen action. So all of the records, they're called pollution DMRs, discharge monitoring reports, all the data. So 5 times a year, these boatyards literally need to collect a water sample, send it to a laboratory, and then the laboratory sends the data to the State Department of Ecology, and it gets posted on a website for the whole world to see. And it's very strict. And if you have 7 or more exceedances, it triggers some action. And so those exceedances are measured in parts per billion for copper, for zinc, oil and grease, suspended solids. And the one that's really tough right now is the amount of copper. So for example, 5 times a year, the boatyards are only allowed to discharge no more than 50 parts per billion of copper. And literally that's like a couple eyedropper drops of copper in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And hard to believe this can be measured. And so when the right amount of rain lands, someone from the boatyard is supposed to go collect the sample and send it to the laboratory. So back in 2008, 2009, NMTA was involved in something that was called an ACART study. Let's find out what are the all known and available reasonable technologies for filtering stormwater. And we came to the conclusion the absolute best somebody could do with filtration was 50 parts per billion. And we agreed on that as sort of the benchmark of the permit. And the good news was that also met water quality standards. So our question to ecology has been, if we were meeting water quality standards in 2009 and we've went through the ACART study, shouldn't 50 parts per billion be adequate? Because right now our boatyards are meeting, in aggregate, they're meeting that. And I'm really proud of our boatyards, what they've done over the last 15 years. I think about my first time in a boatyard in the early 90s, and it's changed greatly how hard everybody's working, the boatyards and the boaters. So there's talk of, trying to get that boatyard permit down to 15 parts per billion, which frankly is unachievable for our boatyards. And when I started with the NMTA, we had a little over 130 boatyards in Washington State. Now we're down to 42.
Are there similar constraints like that in British Columbia? So are some of our boatyards disadvantaged in the competitiveness?
Absolutely. So they are not as strict up in British Columbia. And so that's the concern is, boaters have a choice. So we know that some boats choose to go to Sydney or they choose to go to Vancouver for work. And then if you compare us to boatyards here in the United States, you go out to the Chesapeake or the East Coast or Florida, and our boatyards are being asked to do things that are, it's not an exaggeration at all to say we have in Washington State the toughest boatyard permit in the country, period. Our boatyards are being asked to do things 20 years ago that boatyards on the Chesapeake are just being asked to do right now. And that all has to do with our unique ecosystem out here. We have some ESA listed animals here in Puget Sound that are very important to us. And, you know, we've got our Chinook salmon, we've got our southern resident killer whale, for example. And so it's those ESA animals that are different than on the Chesapeake that make our boatyard so permit so restrictive.
Wow. Correct me if I'm wrong. I remember hearing a story. This has to do with the zinc contaminants that were measured in the water out of boatyards. And somebody was saying that at their boatyard, they wanted to make sure that the chain link fence was outside of the boatyard because it was contributing to the. So it just to underscore how tight these requirements are, that a standard old chain link fence is.
Yep. Yeah, actually, if you're working on, and actually sadly the number of do-it-yourself yards is declining. There's just a couple here in Puget Sound. So if you are working on your boat and you remove the zincs from the prop shaft and you just drop them on the ground, there is enough zinc that gets, you know, dispersed onto the ground that it'll show up in the DMR data when you're measuring in the billions parts per billion. So it needs to go into a 5-gallon bucket. And, you know, the best yards, you know, they've paved them, they've made the surface not permeable. And then they literally have, you know, sweepers. They have staff people full time that just go around and constantly sweep the yard.
Wow.
And then galvanized roofs. If you've got an outbuilding, you know, a building where you store different materials or equipment or tools, and it's got a galvanized roof, if that rain lands on that roof and that water runs onto your yard, and then, you know, some yards are at the bottom of a hill, so they're receiving the stormwater from the community across their yard.
Wow. Amazing.
So that's what we're working on. We're focused and looking forward to the trip next week. And then right when we get back from Washington, D.C., it's the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show.
You want to tell us about that, George?
Sure. Yeah. So the big change is it's the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show featuring TrawlerFest. So I would imagine with our audience tonight, a lot of trawler owners and people perhaps have been to the TrawlerFest. TrawlerFest is owned by an entity called Active Interest Media. They publish some of the best known print publications in the boating world, Passage Maker, Power Motor Yachting, Trade Only for us in the industry, Anglers Journal. And they've really created a great brand franchise called TrawlerFest. They do one in Stuart, Florida. They do one in the Northwest, and they do one out on the East Coast. And so I'm just thrilled to have now a kind of a three-way partnership because it's started with the Anacortes Chamber of Commerce and the Northwest Marine Trade Association in 2018. And then this year we brought in TrawlerFest. So it's really coming together. Right now we've got 147 boats that will be on display. Everything from 10 feet to, I think our largest boat right now is about 80, all at Cap Sandy and Marina on CDOC. And then if you go to the exhibitor list on the website, and I can put this in the chat, we've got 75 different exhibitors. The shoreside displays will have about 34 different accessory vendors. So boatyards, service providers, insurance, yacht clubs. So that's all sold out for the parking lot. Really excited about that.
The Wagner guide will be there. Stop by, say hello. There you go. Thanks, George.
And then there's 28 seminars that TrawlerFest has put together. So a real important detail here is there's 3 show days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and there's going to be 5 seminar days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Hope that doesn't confuse folks. So Tuesday and Wednesday we'll be moving in all those boats, but TrawlerFest will have 5 seminar days, and they'll be using Seafarers Clubhouse right at the mouth of the marina there. They'll be doing some classes over at the Tech Center at Skagit Valley's Marine Tech Center. And then if the classes get too full or too many people in there, our overflow plan is to use the Anacortes Yacht Club. And then really pleased with the reach of the show, kind of promoting Anacortes and the Northwest. We've already sold tickets into 23 states.
Wow.
So whenever I look at that, I just don't want to ever take Washington for granted. You know, there's folks just like us in Indianapolis right now that wished they could be like us and live and boat in Washington State.
And so just to clarify, the seminars start on the 17th and the boat show itself starts on the 19th, correct?
Correct. That's really helpful, Lorena. Yep.
And are there, did I understand there are discounts for some of the seminars if you sign up now?
Yeah. So all the ticketing is online, and or you can also do walk-ups, but you go to Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show, and there's links that'll show you all the boats that are on display, by length, by model, by year, and then you can click on TrawlerFest Education, and you can see all the classes, all 28 classes, the description of the class. Is it 2 hours long? Is it 4 hours long? It's a mix of local Anacortes talent, like Mike Beamer from the Tech Center, and some folks that are coming in from the East Coast and Florida to do the seminar. So a nice mix there. And for ticketing, just if you want to attend the show, one adult ticket is $12. Youth tickets 17 and under are free. And then there is a military discount for walk up, half price. So if you just walk up to the box office, it's half price with a military ID.
Great stuff. It's going to be a fun show.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And this will be the 5th iteration of the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show. And knock on wood, we always have great weather at the Anacortes Boat and Yacht Show. Looking forward to it.
No doubt. George, thanks for joining us. Great to see you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, everyone.
Well,
Thanks, George.
I think that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks to all of you for joining us. And next week, Lauren Carmichael joins us. And this is a pretty interesting story, right? We've got a 56-foot trawler in Fiji. How do you get it back to Anacortes? Well, Lauren will tell us next week. I'm sure this was quite an adventure, huh?
It is. He has some exciting stories to tell, both the paperwork and being at sea, bringing back this boat. He was not able to see in person because it was during COVID. So he has some great stories to tell.
That's great. Well, we're looking forward to that. Appreciate all of you joining us tonight. Have a happy Cinco de Mayo, wherever you may be across the great Northwest or around the world. And we'll talk to you again next Thursday, same time, same place, right here on Waggoner Webcast Live. Thanks for joining us.
Good night, everybody.